Okay, we are here today with the WSIS Action Line Facilitators, and some of them really facilitating very important action lines like enabling environment, UNESCO doing 6 like indigenous languages, media, culture, and of course Carla with capacity building, C4. So, Sophie, enabling environment has really been changing with the rapid technological changes. And what have we achieved over these 20 years? You know, what evolution have you seen? We saw the regulators roundtable, and they gave us such exciting overview of what's happening in their different countries, nearly 64 of them. So, over to you, Sophie. What are your impressions?
So let me go back 20 years. 20 years ago, we were dealing with opening the markets, with the competition, with really the basic fundamentals of telecommunications regulation. Then we came to the early 2010, where we were looking at improving the connectivity. So it was about broadband, about next generation networks. Then we started seeing the economic and social impact of digital. So we started looking at digital financial inclusion and the cross-sectoral interest and the impact of digital on economic and social development. And now we're really in that wheel, the big push towards digital transformation. We realize that the world cannot advance without digital, and that has really brought some challenges for C6, for the enabling environment. How do we approach the enabling environment, and how can we really collaborate across the sectors? In the regulators roundtable, it was very interesting as well to see we are looking really at, if you don't know what you don't know, you can't fix it. So it's data-driven regulation. We're looking at regulatory innovation, regulatory sandboxes to see how can we really be more agile in the regulatory approach, and how can we go towards principles-based regulation. Also in the Knowledge Cafe, when we talked about the WSIS Action Line, we said, okay, we all really know what are the issues at stake, so we've identified the challenges. And looking forward, I think we need to focus more, and that came in the regulatory roundtable as well. We really need to focus on implementation. Focus on the implementation of solutions. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Sophie. One other important aspect that came out in the regulators roundtable was about this cross-sectoral coordination, about regulators coming out in education, in finance, in agriculture, and how does that all come together for digital issues? So that was interesting.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. So it came towards the end of the 2010s, in the beginning of the 2020s, we called it our fourth generation of regulation. We're looking at the economic and social impact and really looking how digital comes across the different sectors. What we call the fifth generation of collaborative regulation, digital is no longer on the agenda, it's the agenda. So that affects the different sectors, and that's why we need that agile regulation and that collaboration across the sectors to be able to see how we can manage the impact of digital in the different sectors. And you mentioned digital financial inclusion, digital e-education or digital education, digital health. There are issues such as consumer protection, data governance, privacy, in addition to universal and meaningful connectivity, right? So you're talking about the access, the adoption, and the value creation, everything going from infrastructure to institutional frameworks, to then skills development, to statistics, to really looking at the data-driven regulation, to innovation, entrepreneurship. So it's all of that needs to be captured by the regulatory framework and the enabling environment.
Thank you, Sophie. Davide, UNESCO is an extremely close partner of ours, not only of ITU, but also the WSIS process. You implement around 6 action lines, looking at a diverse range of activities like media, cultural diversity, indigenous communities, access. So tell us, Davide, how has this whole landscape evolved in these 20 years, and what vision do you see?
Thank you, Nidanjay. I think to continue what was just mentioned, I think what has evolved is that we can no longer see these teams as separated. So we have really to, draw a line which actually is linking all these aspects, all these dimensions of the WSIS in action, and what is the necessary cooperation among the different actors and sectors to make things possible. So this is, I think, probably the most important evolution I see in the 20 years. And now we cannot think about one of these dimensions like education without talking about, of course, connectivity, without talking to access to educational material, without thinking about the copyright and the issues like this. So it's really, of course, multilingualism, indigenous languages, and everything else. So it's really all sort of connected, and WSIS has this privileged, point of view or aspect where all these dimensions come together, and it's not only everything about digital. So now we evolved another aspect from, let's say, can we say analog? I don't know. It's a word we don't use it anymore, but to the digital world, and now we can even think about the post-digital era. We have already work which is done in the areas of neurotechnologies and quantum technologies, etc. It's even maybe beyond the digital spaces. We have to ensure that the WSIS continue to be the platform where all these dimensions can come together and stimulate the collaboration between the different actors and agencies of the UN, but in this multi-stakeholder approach.
Thank you, Davide. You also mentioned the UN coming together. WSIS has been really UN digital cooperation in action, with various WSIS Action Line Facilitators being involved, like FAO, ILO, WHO, ITU, UNESCO. So it's really a beautiful framework of how each UN agency implements their action lines based on their mandate. We also collaborated, Davide, on the decade of indigenous languages, where we came up with this hackathon, developed some really nice solutions. Would you like to elaborate a bit on that?
Yes, I mean, this was an example where the WSIS space has been utilized to bring up the voices of marginalized populations, so maybe where the issue of languages is being raised. I mean, we have at UNESCO a long history of work in terms of revitalization of languages or the protection of endangered languages, and this is, of course, two totally different dimensions with the advent of the internet and the platforms and technologies which are maybe in a mostly natural way given more space to those who have more access to these technologies, or those who are behind the platforms. And this creates, instead of alleviating the divides, creates new divides. And we are still not there. We are still we heard here in different sessions the efforts which have been done in terms of bringing the technology up to this level. For example, even email addresses which are in different languages, different scripts, the domain names, etc. So this is still something which has to be integrated, and despite the fact that we are in an internet society mostly, so these are all aspects that have to be taken on board. And this again touches upon the different dimensions, which is the economic development, which is of course the culture and the authorship, which is the access to information and the production of information and knowledge, and also the how the information is produced and even transmitted, etc. So all the work which is done in terms of around the information as a good, so the information as a public good is clearly one of the aspects for which this work in in working with languages is a coming element.
Thank you, Davide. We move on to capacity building, Action Line C4. Carla, we've been hearing all through these 20 years capacity building of all stakeholders, the users, the creators, regional level, national level, local level, also of parliamentarians, mayors, ministers. So, what have you seen? How have you seen the whole concept evolve over the years? And what are some of the visions that you have developed with the stakeholders?
Great, thank you, Titanjali. And just a nice segue to what has been said before. Basically, what we also have seen, over the past 20 years is that the way of delivering traditional, digital skills program and capacity building, programs has changed. With, of course, emerging technologies, especially AI, we have been, let's say, asked as multi-stakeholders to collaborate a little bit more. We cannot go back at the country level and deliver
For the moment.
capacity building programs in the way how we were doing 20 years ago. So we just need to adapt, and we need to be flexible, and we need to be innovative. We need to think out of the box, because there is still, while of course in the past 20 years we have achieved more collaboration, there is more awareness around the importance of digital skills, especially in an area that is defined by digital transformation. We can still see a certain gap, digital skills gap, at different levels. So not only, of course, at the users level, but also at the policy making level, at the regulators level. And therefore there is a need really to come together to really define what does it mean, develop a national digital skills strategy, develop a digital skills policy, which comes, of course, at the center of when a country needs to develop a digital transformation strategy. That now more or less every country is now finally moving forward. So what we have seen also from the Knowledge Cafe is this need to be as inclusive as possible when it comes to the deployment of digital skills. Most of the times we think and we go to the main target groups at the urban level, but there is a desperate need to go outside that urban, the urban, let's say, center. So we need to go more in that served communities. We need to think about those that are often left, let's say, on the margins of the society, such as visually impaired, people or people with disabilities. So there is still a lot to do, but I think that the vision is that we need to use better measurement. So we need to capture what it has been done. And this goes a bit to what Sophie was saying about the data, that we need, not only we need to capture what it has been achieved at the international level, but we need to go more at the regional and national and eventually local level to really understand what are the real needs of the people when we really deploy digital skills.
Thank you, Carla. Indeed, people were discussing out here not only the need to go to the international, national, regional, local level, but also ensuring that in the future of WSIS, the whole concept of multi-stakeholderism is strengthened. So not only continued, but strengthened. And of course, the WSIS Forum, the implementation of WSIS Action Lines has been so crucial for that. The other thing that we have been also listening is that once we have these, we've asked for these 20-year reports, and the action line facilitators have submitted them to us, but also from countries, from different stakeholders. So also to do an assessment of what different stakeholder types and different countries have achieved, what challenges. So also to spend some time on assessing, that what have we achieved across all the regions and what are the challenges, and then form a vision of really what is needed beyond as well. Same for capacity building, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think that this is really a matter of the WSIS Forum, of course, has been a pioneer on that. It's really a matter of coming back together every year, but really trying to understand with different stakeholders how we are advancing, really trying to understand the needs, and also being aware that new actors or new ways of seeing things needs to be also accepted and adopted. For instance, yesterday at the Knowledge Cafe, we had the opportunity to have some young people at the table, which again, normally over the past years, outside, of course, the WSIS forum, we do not normally reach. So I feel, and the discussion was so richful because we really understood what are the needs from a young person living again in little province. So I feel that we also need to include, really, in that inclusion, when we say inclusion is not only by theory, but it's also in practice, and it's also more needs to be translated at the implementation level and at the reporting level.
Thank you, Carla. Indeed, I'm glad you noticed it was the first WSIS forum where we had a youth track, and there were a lot of youngsters around, more than 300 of them, and we've been advised to continue with it, so we'll definitely be working with all of you. So thank you for being with me here today. The WSIS Action Lines, they've been agile. They have evolved with the evolution of technology. They've kept pace. And though we've achieved a lot in these 20 years, with the ecosystem changing, the digital ecosystem changing, the technology's fast-paced change, there is a lot to be done. And we are there to work together as the UN system with all stakeholders to ensure that we continue to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.